Hi everyone, thank you for listening today. And just before the podcast begins, I wanted to let you know that if you are looking to improve your own leadership skills and are thinking about a coach to help you take the next step, then why not consider Elevated Leadership? We are executive coaches, of which I am one, with experience as CEOs and elite level sports coaches who understand the challenge of having to step forward even when you are unsure of what the moment requires of you. We are guided by the belief that there is no algorithm for leadership, but there is a way to align your values, vision, and behaviour in a way that helps you excel and elevate your leadership. If you'd like to know more, we are always keen on chatting about leadership, and our contact details are in the show notes. Welcome to the Great Coaches Podcast.
To me, being perfect is not about that scoreboard out there.
This is a chance of a lifetime.
When you can understand the person, you can then work towards a common goal.
We are all on the same team.
Know your role and do it to the best of your ability.
Focus on the fundamentals. We've gone over time and time again.
Your defense has got to be better.
Leave no doubt tonight.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
Hello and welcome to the Great Coaches Podcast. My name is Paul Barnett, and here on the podcast, we believe that there is no algorithm for leadership. And so we interview great sports coaches from around the world to try and find one or two ideas to help us all be better leaders. Why sports coaches? Well, because we believe they possess the leadership skills that make a long-term impact on people's lives. Our great coach on this episode is Mickey Arthur. Mickey is a cricket coach. He's coached 4 of the 12 test-playing nations in the world, including South Africa, Australia, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Key highlights from his long career include leading the South African team to be number 1 in all cricket formats, coaching the South Africans when they scored a record 438 in a one-day international against Australia, and taking Pakistan to number 1 in the T20 and Test format, while also winning the Champions Trophy with them. He was the first non-Australian to coach the Australian Test team and has also been the head coach for Jamaica in the Caribbean Premier League, the Karachi Kings in Pakistan and the Rangpur Riders in Bangldesh. He is presently head coach of the Derbyshire County Cricket Club. Mickey is very open in sharing his leadership story, the ups and the downs, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we did.
Leadership insights from the best. Welcome to the Great Coaches Podcast.
Mickey Arthur, I am thrilled to be talking to you today, an ex-Australian cricket coach on day 3 of the Sydney Test. How are you today, and where are you in the world?
Thank you, Paul. I know we've been talking about this for a long time, so it's a privilege to be on your podcast. I'm currently in Bangladesh, in the Bangladesh Premier League at the moment, so that's continuing. We've got a day off. We played last night, so we got a day off today, which is always great. I've got the Sydney Test match on the TV, keeping an eye on that, so I'm across most things going on at the moment.
Mickey, when you look at your resume, it's amazing. You've coached 4 of the 12 test-playing nations. You've coached in Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, Bangladesh, Jamaica. Have I missed anywhere else that you may have coached?
Well, South Africa, the obvious one, and in the UK now, county cricket in the UK, and obviously I sit in Bangladesh at the minute. So no, I've been very fortunate, Paul. You know, cricket's been very, very good to me, and I'm humbled in that regard, and it's allowed me to fulfill my dream and coach, which I absolutely adore. I just love seeing players get better and seeing players develop, and that for me gives me my thrill in life.
Well, we're going to get into all of that. We're going to go on the journey from South Africa all the way through to where you are today. But maybe, Mickey, I always start these interviews by asking great coaches like yourself, and I know before you say it, you don't consider yourself a great coach. I know that all great coaches think that, but you've obviously seen some other really good coaches up close. You've coached against them, you've worked with them, and I'm just wondering what it is you think the really good ones, the great coaches, do differently.
I think the great coaches have always got a little bit of a niche. They're kind of ahead of the trend, if you like. Kind of looking at there's so many trends in the game now, particularly in the white ball game, and I think the great coaches always seem to be a step ahead. And I know when I started with the South African side, we tried different things in our white ball team to try and stay ahead of the rest of the pack. You know, it was cliched things like in those days was, instead of just knocking around the kind of dead overs, you know, from outside the power play to the death, so overs 11 to 39, we sort of went to over 20, and then we tried to take overs 20 to 39 on a bit, and it gave guys the freedom then to try and hit the top. If there was a long off, well, I didn't mind if the guys tried off. So we kind of now the boys, you know, if there's a long off, they just hit it over the guy's head. So that became the norm, and I'd like to think that we were kind of ahead of the pack in that. I've been influenced by so many, and I think the one who influenced me the most in my development when I was a player, the coach that I thought, wow, he had a lot of everything I wanted to be going for him, you know, was the late the South African all-rounder, and he coached me when I was playing at Free State, and he was the guy that introduced the 3 run and over theory. You know, he was kind of ahead of the pack there. It was in those days I was playing, it was 1993, and he wanted us, our mantra at that time in our domestic cricket was we needed to score 3 runs and over, and we needed to restrict the opponents to under 3 runs and over, because he equated to 4-day cricket to being a pressure game, which it is. 4-day cricket, test cricket, it's a pressure game. And the amount you can absorb and then apply is critical as to the ultimate result. And he thought that if you're scoring at just over 3 and over, you are applying more pressure on that bowling attack. Whereas if you're bowling and they're under 3, well, they need to make a play because the game's going nowhere. He used to say, if you get it to 4 runs and over, though, watch out, because then you're going into a high risk zone. And amazingly, how that's changed. You know, that 3 runs and over is probably now 4.5 runs and over in the modern game. But in 1993, that was quite a radical trend. You know, coaches I always came into said, you want to bat for time, and you can't score runs if you're not at the crease, which is all really, really philosophy was always look to score. And if we're going at 3 runs and over, the opposition are under pressure. So that was one thing that really, really influenced me. And then just the way he handled players and the radical things he did. You know, I think I took a lot of the good and there was a little bit of bad that I thought, okay, if I'm a coach, those are things that I don't want to be doing. And I learned the most from the late Eddie Barlow. And then in your career, you coach against some very, very good coaches, and I've been privileged to do that. You know, I started off the great John Buchanan in Australia when I was a young pup coaching South Africa. John Buchanan was coach, and you know, I was in awe of John Buchanan. He was the legendary coach at that time. And then, excuse me, things have progressed, and Andy Flower is always you know, we coached against each other lots. And then, I mean, there's numerous guys now, but you know, I always look at other coaches. I always watch other coaches. I always see what they're doing, what their pre-match routines are. And, you know, I always have a look, because there's a professional kind of rivalry, if you like. And I always set my bar against other coaches in terms of preparation and things like that. So is our preparation better? Am I giving our players a better chance of success than the opposition coach? So there is always that little bit of a rivalry.
Well, Mickey, you know, you retired in 2001 and you were coaching in 2003. And lo and behold, in 2005, you named the South African coach. It's a meteoric rise. And at the time, there was a lot of people that considered it a very surprising decision. But what do you think it was about your style that matched what South Africa needed at that moment?
Well, I think it's very interesting because I'll blatantly sit here and say that I wasn't ready to coach internationally at that point in time. I'd only coached for a couple of years, and I was lucky because when I finished playing, the guys that I was coaching were guys that I played against who were young guys coming through when I was sort of the elder statesman, if you like. And so I had a level of respect there. But then you've got to earn that respect by your messaging, by your communication, by your structure, and by your knowledge. You get respect because the job gives you respect, but you then only carry that respect for a certain period of time until you need to walk the walk. And I was fortunate. We did quite nicely with the domestic team that I was coaching. I then coached at the National Academy in the winters in South Africa. I would fly back and forth to the National Academy and do some work there in the winter months, and then coached South Africa A before that, and kind of built up a rapport with all those players. But if you ask me what my kind of X factor was, I think the thing was I understood South Africa in 2005. I understood the dynamic fairly well. Obviously, there was change. There was apartheid. Thankfully, had been dismantled ages ago, but there was still this fight for equal opportunities within the national setup, and I think I understood that, and I'd like to think I understood that, and that gave me a little bit of a competitive edge over guys who perhaps didn't understand it as well as I did. I was very fortunate. Gerald Majola gave me the opportunity. He was CEO of South African Cricket at the moment, and Graham and myself took charge, and I was a very young novice coach, and he was a very young novice captain, and we got severely dealt with in Australia in our first tour out there in 2005, 2006, but vowed to come back from that in 2008. And we put structures in place for 2008 to go there and win. That was a massive goal of ours. So, it was interesting. I'm just very fortunate, Paul, again, that the opportunities was presented to me, and that has allowed me to fulfill my dream of coaching all over the world.
I'm going to come back to captains and Graham Smith later on, but you say you were lucky and fortunate, but the first 2 years in that job were pretty unsuccessful, but then things just changed quickly. 9 unbeaten Test series victories. You become the first South African coach to win a Test match in Australia. You become the number 1 ranked one-day and Test team. It's an amazing experience in just such a short time. When you look back on it, Mickey, do you think there were any big decisions you made that might have tipped the balance in your favour? Something you did, or some decision that propelled things?
Yeah, 100%. Or as I said to you, and I alluded to the fact, I remember sitting in the wool store in Hobart. We'd just got beaten because after the Test series, where I think Shane Warne said, Graham and I were very blasé. Are we going to come in 2005, 2006? We're going to beat Australia. We sort of puffed our chests out, and we read the room totally wrong. And I think Shane Warne said we were the worst South African side that's ever hit the Australian shores. And we got severely beaten. And then we were getting beaten up as well in the one-dayers, and that always was always after the Test series. I remember sitting in my room in Hobart. It was in the old wool store in Hobart, thinking I can either run away from this job now, or I can look myself in the mirror and we make some tough decisions and we make change, which I don't know if they're going to be right or wrong, but we've got to do something. And I remember Gerald Majola met Graham Smith and myself in Perth. We'd gone down for a one-day game in Perth just after that reflection in Hobart. And we went down to Perth, and he met us there. And we went and sat in a room in the Hyatt Hotel in the Perth, and we plotted the way forward for South African cricket, for how we saw and wanted to take this team forward. He gave Graham and myself his unequivocal support, and we looked at certain changes in the team that we needed to make. We were very fortunate as well, Paul. There were some fantastic players. So, you talk Graham Smith, you're talking Jacques Callis, you're talking Mackay and Tini, you're talking Mark Boucher, and then we brought in a young Hashim Amla, a young A.B. Villiers, a young Dale Steyn, a young Morne Morkel. So we had that talent at our disposal. And then it was just kind of molding that talent. And once we molded that talent and got roles 100% ironed out and everybody knew exactly what they were accountable for, we then started winning. And it's amazing that when you start winning, you get on this roll, confidence grows within you, and everybody feels at ease, team spirit goes through the roof, and you just roller coaster, which we did for a couple of years, and it was fantastic.
I want to talk about molding talent, Ken. I've got this great quote from you, Mickey. You say, some of the most important things I've learned along the way in my coaching career are to build really good relationships with players, to make sure you create an environment of excellence that allows those players to flourish. So it's the last bit there that caught my eye. And I wondered, what have you learned about the most crucial things a coach can do to build that environment where people can flourish?
You've got to first build the relationship with the player, because trust is your most important ally in this. So once you've built that relationship up with the player, you can start challenging him. And you need to challenge players proactively to get better and better. But you can only do that from a level of honesty and trust. So once you've got that honesty and trust, you can then start delivering messages, whether they're good or bad, and the player listens to them. I always say, I want to be the best friend, the father, the headmaster, and the uncle of every player. And it just depends which hat I put on the day as need of that player. Sometimes he needs a good pulling into line. Sometimes he needs an arm around him. And I've got to know that player well enough to know when to do everything, when to give him that little bit of support, or when to just put that crack under him just to say, we need a little bit more. And once you've got the relationship with the player, you can do all that.
And Mickey, it's so interesting listening to talk to you about becoming a friend. You mentioned it was the first thing you said. How do you find that line? I hear so many people talk about it, whether they're a CEO or a coach or even a manager. Don't get too close. It's hard. You lose your objectivity. How have you dealt with that as you've moved along?
Well, that is very true. So when I say friend, is I want the player to feel comfortable to come and chat to me about anything, which I think I do. So if a player's going through some off-field issues, I want them to be confident and trust me enough to come and discuss those with me, because that's how you build that relationship. And once you do that, you can then push him in his professional environment. The one thing I do, though, is I don't patronize with the players. There's always a line. I'll go and have a dinner if there's a team dinner or whatever, but I won't be seen myself with any players if in terms of going for dinners with them every night, etc. I do believe there needs to be a line. Just like you being a CEO, you'd like to think that you have the trust of all your employees, but you're not going out with them every night. And that's kind of the friend that I said. By being that friend, I want to be the shoulder that they can cry on, the shoulder that they can laugh on, and I want to be part of their fabric, if you like. I want to be part of their life for the period that I'm coaching them. But I'm not their buddy, if you like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's a little different at work because we're not away from home like you are. You're away with people in another country. You're close to them every day. And I think at work, you don't have that intimacy in the evening catching up. When I worked in the beer industry, very much you were out at night with people and you built a different relationship. But I always think, about the idea of being friendly, but not necessarily everyone's friend. I think being a friend is a very intimate relationship, and it's not something that you can necessarily do through leadership. But finding that balance with care is something it sounds like you've done really well.
That's exactly it. Finding that balance with care. They must be confident enough to be able to come and discuss anything with me if they choose to.
A rich life isn't a straight line to a destination on the horizon. Sometimes it takes an unexpected turn with detours, new possibilities, and even another passenger or three. And with 100 years of navigating ups and downs, you can count on Edward Jones to help guide you through it all. Because life is a winding path, made rich by the people you walk it with. Let's find your rich together. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Now, finding a doctor is a little less challenging. United Health Group is investing in tools that make it easier for patients to navigate healthcare and pay less. These transparency tools help patients find providers, and this is the big thing: compare costs up front. The big picture? More transparent pricing benefits everyone. And these tools from United Health Group can help patients save hundreds of dollars annually. Learn more at unitedhealthgroup.com/commitment.
So, Mickey, the career progresses. You get over to Australia in 2011, and then in 2013, you were sacked. And I was talking to someone in preparation for today, and he reminded me that we were there that day. It was over in England, and we were there. So I share that little bit of history with you. I don't really want to go into the sacking, but what I really want to talk to you about is this was probably the first time in your career where you'd experienced this kind of setback. And I'm wondering what it taught you about dealing with self-doubt.
It taught me the most important lesson that I've ever got in coaching, and that it's the first time you get sacked, and they say every coach, you're not a coach until you've been sacked.
Yeah.
What I didn't do, and I've said it a lot of times, is I thought I could come in and work with Australia like I worked with South Africa, and you can't do that. I needed to sit back a little bit. I'd gone in 2010, it was to Western Australia, and I finished with South Africa, and went to, as I finished, Graham Wood phoned me from the Wacker, and I went over to the Wacker, and we started a project in Perth that I'm really enjoying. Now, timing's everything in jobs, and the Australian job came up, and you've got to go for it. And I was fortunate enough to get the job. They took the opportunity with me, but I probably needed another couple of years in the Australian environment to properly understand it. And I think, as I said, I came in and I tried to run Australia like I ran South Africa. I was saying off the field because the captain very much runs it on the field. And it wasn't the same. We went really well for a year. And then there were certain things within that team. Australian cricket at that time was a tough beast to operate. There was a lot of senior players that were moving on. There were some younger players coming in. There was a little bit of friction within the environment. It was a tough place for me as not knowing any history to come in and coach at that particular time. But it went well for a year. And then, I thought there was a time I thought players became just a little bit too entitled. I felt we needed to pull everything together. And I guess homework gate was a line in the sand moment, but it didn't need to be. That's a different story. But I felt there was something in the organization that just needed to be tightened up. So that we could go again and relaunch ourselves, if you like, as a team. And it spiraled out after homework gate, which was very disappointing, because I think that, I still had a massive amount to offer, but I was probably not the right fit at that particular. I learned that, but I went back to Perth, and I coached at Christchurch Grammar School and did a little bit of work there, and it gave me the love and appreciation again for the game. But I also spent a lot of time working through how I had the things that I had done wrong with Australia, if it were. There was a lot of time for me for reflection. And I think that when I went then into the Pakistan job, I did Christchurch Grammar School, and I did a lot of franchises, BPL, Caribbean Premier League, Pakistan Super League. I did all those, which kept me hungry for more. And then when I was asked to do the Pakistan job, I think I was the best version that I was as a coach, simply because of the experiences that I'd had.
Well, let's talk about Pakistan. I mean, so this is 2016. You go on an amazing run, right? You become the number 1 ranked test team and the T20 team. You win the 2017 Champions Trophy over India. I mean, Mickey, this is a great return to form. I guess I wanted to ask you, you've alluded to it, but how did your coaching style evolve from that version of Mickey Arthur to the one way back in South Africa who achieved such great success after a couple of years of grind?
Yeah, it evolved quite a lot, Paul. It definitely did. As I said, I think you've got to, when you walk into an environment, you've got to sit back for a little while and just watch that environment operate, and then make the changes that you think that environment needs. And I did that with Pakistan. Coaching the subcontinent is very different to coaching in the Western world. And I really do enjoy coaching in the subcontinent. There's a lot more respect for the coach. Life for the players, chaotic. And the minute you can come in and they cry out for structure, the minute you come in and create an environment where they feel secure, where they feel that they can improve, and they feel that you've got their best interests at heart, you get a massive amount out of players in the subcontinent. And I've loved coaching the subcontinent for that simple reason, that the players just lap up everything you say. It's a wonderful environment to coach in. I realized that in Pakistan, after sitting back for a little bit, they needed stability. So what happens is every player there eventually starts playing for the next tour, because they start playing for themselves, because they get dropped at the Women of a Prayer. There's no communication there. So I watched this. The players cried out for structure. The players cried out for clear communication. The players cried out for clear role definition, and they all wanted to be part of it. And so I looked at it, and we cleared the Pakistan side out a little bit, and we went forward with some younger players, some incredible young players. Babar Azam, Shadab Khan, Shaheen Shah Afridi, just trying to think who else there was, but a lot of Haris Sohail. There was a lot of these young players, Hassan Ali, that just wanted opportunity. Fakhar Zaman. And what all I did was create an environment that allowed them to perform, but an environment that allowed them to feel secure, because they'd never had security before. And once they had that, their talent was allowed to blossom. Like, for instance, with Babar Azam, I remember starting with us, and he impressed me so much. I watched him in a net session. Grant Flower was my batting coach, and he said, come and have a look at this young player. He just randomly rocked up at the National Academy as young players do, to come and hit balls. And Grant had just watched him and seen him and said, come and have a look at this guy. This guy's incredible. And he went down. I remember he was facing a flicker from one of his mates. And the thing that impressed me so much was his hands. His hands through the ball and the positions he made. And we watched him for about 20 minutes. And I went back and I said, this guy is touring every tour we have now with Pakistan. This guy's touring with us. And the only batting position he could bat in the test team was 3. I said to Misbah, who was captain at that time, that we're playing Bob Azam every test, and he battled a little bit, but them and stuck with them. And just because we could see this guy develop into, and he was going to develop into something really, really special. But again, in the system previously, he might not have had a look at. Now, you think that Barber's talent would have come through and he would have been good enough. Of course he would have, but it would have taken a lot more time. We were prepared to invest in him and create opportunity for him in a secure environment, which allowed him to get better. Fakir Zaman was the same. Now, Fakir Zaman, he'll tear your hair out. That's why I've got a cap on, because I got no hair left from coaching. He'll get out in 5 innings. He's going to get out 3 times and you go, what the hell's he doing? But he's going to win you 2 games. The other 2 games, he's going to win you. And that was my philosophy with him is, Fakir, you're going to play every game for the next 10 ODIs. Go and play your style, because I know you're going to win us 3 of them. And it's amazing then how he relaxes, takes that on board, and then he plays with that freedom. Play with that freedom. The world's their oyster, because they're all so talented. But when you take away that fear of failure, you get the best out of them. And I love that with the Pakistan team. We changed it up, and all of a sudden we've stumbled across this right formula. Sarfraz Ahmed was coach. He was captain. He was a wonderful captain. Him and I got on exceptionally well. And we got on this formula, and we got on this role, and it was just an incredible time to be coaching such a talented team. And watching them progress and develop was the highlight of my coaching career so far.
Well, we've got Baba Azam and Shaheen Shah Afridi in Australia this summer, and I've been watching them most evenings on the Big Bash, and they are just terrific. So exciting to watch. And you actually, I read recently, you talked about how happy you were and the satisfaction you took from the fact that both of those people were, in your words, starting to believe in themselves. I wonder what you've learned along the way, Mickey, about helping people build self-belief in themselves, and if you found some tools that are more effective than others.
Yeah, I have. I think I have, and the tools, it's very simple, Paul. Without there's a kind of and I'm nowhere near a psychologist. I don't want to be called that at all. But I think in coaching, you are a psychologist of sorts, because you've got to make your players feel 10 foot tall. You've got to make that every day that they come to training, they've got to feel that they are the best versions of themselves. They're the best that they can possibly be, because then you can make them better. But also, you've got to then also be able to challenge them. Because the worst thing for me is seeing a very good player get into a comfort zone. I can't stand comfort zones, because that stunts a player's growth. And I'm here to grow a player every day. A coach is there to grow a player every day. So you've got to make them feel 10 foot tall, but you've also got to have available to have that open and honest dialogue with them, that pushes them to make them better. And I kind of find that, I think most players that I've coached would say that I have had the ability to make them feel the best in the world at some form in time. And players want positive confirmations. A player doesn't like continually being not degraded, but I hate coaches, Paul, who constantly would sit back and just go to a training session and go, you need to change this, you need to do that, you need to do this, and harp on the negatives all the time. Coaches have a very, very bad habit of doing that. Because you're a coach, you feel you've got to go down to a training session and talk because you feel you've got to coach. The best coaches are silent. They watch their players, they know their players, and will give that little bit of information that takes them to another level. And I always start any conversation with a player with a positive first. You played beautifully today. I thought your feet moved incredibly well. I thought you got your weight over your front leg superbly. You looked incredible. Off the back foot, I think, though, that we didn't cover our stumps enough. We didn't get to off stump. That's something we can work on. But geez, off the front foot, you were really good. So he listens then to your message. Because if it's continually just, I think your back leg was going outside leg stump. I think we need to get to off stump. Come on, work harder. Players eventually switch off to you. Players love hearing all positive affirmations. And when you give them those positive affirmations, they listen to your feedback in terms of them becoming better. So I think that's very simply the tool I've used.
Mickey, we talked about captains earlier. How about these names? The ones that you worked with, I'll just roll them off. Graham Smith, Michael Clark, Mispar, and now Demuth. You've worked with some pretty good captains. I mean, these guys are, and I guess, I don't know if Bubba Azar was ever the captain after Mispar when you were there, but the role of the captain in cricket, it's so important because during play, they're the one making decisions. And I'm wondering what you've learned about picking captains along the journey.
Well, as you say, I've been very fortunate to work with some wonderful captains. I mean, Graham Smith was incredible. Michael Clark was an incredible captain. Misbah Haq, very good. Sarfraz Ahmed, very, very good. Dimuth Karunaratne at Sri Lanka, very good. Now, they were all totally different. My dealings with a captain is on the field, the captain runs everything, and I'm there to support him. Off the field, I'll take charge, and it allows the captain to work on his game. And I'll have all the messaging and do all the meetings, etc., so that he can concentrate solely on his game. And then when the team sheet I give him the team sheet at the toss, he then takes over that mantle, and I go into that supporting role with him. So that's how I've worked with the captains, and they've always been very appreciative of that. The worst thing I think for a captain is to have to handle all the off-field stuff. And you'll hear great captains say that the hardest thing was not on the field, the hardest thing's off the field. As a coach, I try to alleviate all those off-field issues for them. And as I say, they were all very, very different. Graham had this incredible aura about him. When he spoke in a dressing room, it was phenomenal. Didn't speak much, but when he spoke, you listened. When he walked into that dressing room, he had an aura. Players knew who the leader was. Michael Clark is the best captain I've ever seen. Tactically, Michael Clark was always 3 overs ahead of the game. He was phenomenal in that regard. On the field, brilliant. Not great off the field. Misbah Haq, very quiet, just did he captained like he batted. Sarfraz Ahmed, air of authority. The players were his mate, but he gave them a lot of bamboo as well. He pulled them into line. He was very, very much in charge on the field. And the players knew he was their leader. He had a wonderful ability to have a go at them incredibly on the field. And he did, sometimes overly much. But when he came in the dressing room, he was the first guy to have an arm around him, and they were mates again. So he had the ability to do that. And Dimuth Karunaratne, very quiet, very good. So every one of them were very, very good in their own rights, but just did things slightly differently.
So now we get to Sri Lanka. And when you got there, you talked about the fact that you wanted to help them develop healthy habits. You said they are very talented players, but who didn't know what the best preparation was. It's about embedding habits into them. It just made me think, Mickey, what are the healthy habits that you like to practice with your coaching?
For me, it's interesting because I actually spoke last night in our dressing room. We won. We've got a very good team in this Bangladesh Premier League, and we won convincingly last night, chasing 170. But our standards weren't right, and standards for me are everything. Standards for me determine your team, determine the culture of your team. It's all about team and not about individuals. B, you bring your best version of yourself every day into the dressing room. I always talk about fielding showing the temperature of the team. So when your team is out in the field, you can see exactly the temperature because you see attitude. Fielding is all attitude. Are the guys running in? Are they backing up? Are they attacking the ball? Are they trying to make catches that are 50-50 perhaps? I always say when the ball is in the field and it's hit out to a player, you see the field move. The guy running in to field the ball, the keeper getting to the stumps, the inner ring fielder coming in to back up, the fielder on the boundary coming in behind him to back up. And when you see that, you know your team is on. So for me, standards are incredibly important. Your standards in your preparation. Have you done enough? Have you hit enough balls? Have you bowled enough balls? Have you given yourself the best opportunity of having success on that day? I don't mind players making mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes every day. What I don't like is seeing players make mistakes when I know they haven't prepared properly, when they're trying to take shortcuts. And in essence, that's what I saw with Sri Lankan cricket when I went in there. And we tried to create those healthy habits that would allow them the best opportunity to have success.
What does it mean to live a rich life? It means brave first leaps, tearful goodbyes, and everything in between. With over 100 years' experience navigating the ups and downs of the market and of life, your Edward Jones financial advisor will be there to help you move ahead with confidence. Because with all you've done to find your rich, we'll do all we can to help you keep enjoying it. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Now, finding a doctor is a little less challenging. United Health Group is investing in tools that make it easier for patients to navigate healthcare and pay less. These transparency tools help patients find providers, and this is the big thing: compare costs up front. The big picture? More transparent pricing benefits everyone. And these tools from United Health Group can help patients save hundreds of dollars annually. Learn more at unitedhealthgroup.com/commitment.
One thing you said recently, I caught my eye as well when I was preparing for the interview. You said, I like the projects where you build a team and you build a brand that's sustainable for a long time. And I get that, and I can see that in the career choices you've made. But balancing this against the need for short-term results must be quite difficult. What's the key to doing both?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because as coaches, you're always trying to have success now. So when I sit with my captain, we talk about with the direction we want to take the team in. We make those hard calls that we need to. I want the captain to focus on the now, on the performance right now, where I'll focus on the now, but I've got one eye to the next tour or the next or the next competition, or the next selection. So I think that's really important. You've got to live as a coach in the now, because success determines your career. And the more success you can get, the easier it is to implement change down the line, particularly in the subcontinent. But if you don't come in with a brand that could be sustainable, there's no reference points for players. Now I've got a list of non-negotiables that I will sit with the players and discuss right at the start. I will look at the players that we've got at our disposal and then try and create a brand around that. and then present that brand to the players. And the reason we present that brand to the players is so we've got reference points. It's like players' technique. Their players trigger. So when a batsman triggers, if things aren't going well, you've got a reference point to go back to. If the player's technically not good enough, there is no reference point. So you're always thumb-sucking as to how you can get him better. So I like seeing reference points that you can come back to. So if a player steps out of line, or if you leave a player out, you've always got a yardstick for him to come back. These are what we require in our team. This is our list of non-negotiables. This is our brand that we want to play. I want you to fit in here in that brand, but these are the things I need you to go away and work on. And once you've got them right, you come back into the team. It's not a thumb suck. It's not, you've played 2 innings which haven't been good enough, off you go. Well, the player's got no yardstick then to measure himself on. So I always like presenting to the players, A, non-negotiables, B, structure. This is how you fit into our structure, and this is our brand, and this is how we're going to go forward. Because ultimately, it's about team. We want to take individuals out of it. And if you get the individuals performing and doing their roles perfectly within your brand, you'll have sustainable success. So those are things that I'm pretty tough on as a coach, because I don't think you can have long-term success and sustainable success without a proper brand and a proper structure.
Mickey, is that list of non-negotiables consistent no matter where you are in the world? Whether you're in Bangladesh now, you're going back for the English season, does it stay the same?
It changes. And the reason it changes is because every environment that you're involved in is different. So my list of non-negotiables here are not the same in the Bangladesh Premier League as they are at Derbyshire County Cricket Club, or with an international cricket team, because with an international cricket team, seeing an environment 12 months of a year player to improve. So you are totally and wholly responsible for his development. Whereas when they come into a franchise, you have them for a month. You're not going to make them significantly better, but you've got to give them a clear role within your environment as to how they fit in, and then try and make them 10 foot tall. Now, a lot of the things for me in modern coaching annoys me. It annoys me, I'm saying modern cricket coaching, because a lot of coaches now coach in franchises. For me, that's not proper coaching. And that's why I far prefer coaching internationally or running a lot with a county cricket club, if you like, because I am totally responsible for that player's development. And he might go off to different leagues and come back to us, but I'm the constant. Whereas in a franchise environment, you're creating an environment for 6 weeks for the player to come in, and then you've got to coach him differently, because you're trying to create an environment that's fun. You want players you want to take the pressure off the players. You want them to perform, but you've got no real duty of care to make them better players, if that's what I mean. You're there to create an environment that allows the team to have ultimate success, to make the owners happy. When you're in an environment, in an international environment, you carry the burden of progressing those players' careers and developing them to make sure that they optimize their potential. That's where I like to position as a coach. I like the responsibility of making players better. What I see in franchises is it's just relaxed, yeah. And I'm Paul, but it's just a nice, relaxed environment. Everything's nice. You don't really challenge. You don't have to push. But if you are responsible for a player's development over 12 months of a year, you've got to challenge him. You've got to push him. You've got to have your list of non-negotiables. You've got to be able to drive his performances over that period of time.
Mickey, potential, making people better, challenging them, flourishing came up earlier, respect at the start. There's some really big big words and big themes that run through this interview. And I wonder, just to finish, if I could ask you, I don't know how far away you are from retirement. I think you're probably years and years and years away from it, looking at the energy with which you're talking about your profession. But what's the legacy that you hope you do leave behind with the people that you've led along the way?
Well, the legacy I want to leave is that I've helped players become the best they can possibly be. It's so rewarding now that wherever I've been, I'm still in touch with those players, and that for me is really special, because that meant that they've respected me and they've appreciated what I've tried to do for their careers. So that makes me feel, it humbles me. That makes me feel really good. In terms of where I am, I'm 57 now, but I've still got massive energy, Paul. I've still got incredible energy to develop players. I love it. I love every day of my job. I love going down to the cricket ground. I'm the first one in, I'm the last one to leave every day, because I just enjoy the environment. Every environment I see as my little baby, and I just want that baby to start walking and then start running and then start winning. And if I get that, well, then that gives me ultimate satisfaction.
Mickey, you've got great energy. I feel it's 4:00 in the afternoon here, and you've pumped me up. I feel like I should go out and hit a few cricket balls. Thank you so much for your time. It's taken us years to get together, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. You've had a wonderful career, and I can't wait to share this interview with you, with a wider audience.
No, I really appreciate it, Paul. Thank you so much. I'm honoured to be on your podcast, and thank you for all those messages, and thank you for what you do. Every podcast you put up, I watch, and it really is great platform for coaches. So thank you for that.
Hi everyone, you have been listening to the great coach, Mickey Arthur. We hope you enjoyed it and found a couple of ideas that you can bring back to your own team for discussion. When I was listening back, doing the edit, some of the highlights for me were Mickey's view that standards define the culture of the team, and the way he goes about introducing these standards, or as he refers to them, his non-negotiables, when he starts with a team. Layered above these is the brand of play the team will use, and then within that, the role of each athlete. These three things, non-negotiables, brand and role, are the three key pillars of his philosophy. And this challenged me as to what my non-negotiables are as a leader and whether or not I've communicated them well enough to the team. His view that the best coaches are silent. They don't overtalk. Instead, they use concise feedback to help challenge and move the athlete forward. This triggered me to question whether there are times that I overtalk as a leader, and the corrosive nature of the comfort zone and how it is the worst place for an athlete to be, and the way he uses challenge to move people out of this space. And this made me reflect on who I should be challenging more in my team. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and if those questions are helpful for you, I'll put them in the show notes. And just before we go, if you have any feedback, then please let us know. Just like Lote08, who after listening to our episode with Tim Sheens said, loved it. Craig Bellamy would be a great episode too. If anybody out there knows Craig, please let me know. He's one of the coaches I've had on my dream interview list for quite some time. We love the interaction with the people around the world who listen, so please, any feedback or comments, let us know. In fact, if we could ask anything of you, it would be to forward this episode onto one person in your network who might be interested in developing their own leadership skills. But if you have any feedback and would like to contact us, all the details are in the show notes or on our website, thegreatcoachespodcast.com.
A rich life isn't a straight line to a destination on the horizon. Sometimes it takes an unexpected turn with detours, new possibilities, and even another passenger or three. And with 100 years of navigating ups and downs, you can count on Edward Jones to help guide you through it all. Because life is a winding path, made rich by the people you walk it with. Let's find your rich together. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
That feeling when you check your bank account and your paycheck's days away. And of course, your calendar's all... Good news. With Chase Secure Banking, your direct deposit hits your bank account up to 2 days faster. So when your friends are like, and your bills go, you have the peace your deposit brings. And the best part? There's no monthly service fee for 17 to 24-year-olds. Thanks to Chase Secure Banking.
For Chase Secure Checking only, eligible direct deposits may be credited up to 2 business days early, depending on when the payer submits the transaction. Member FDIC.
From small towns to big cities, Comcast is connecting millions of Americans to affordable, reliable, and secure Wi-Fi at prices that are clear and consistent with the new 5-year price guarantee. Backed by AI innovation, resilient design, and cybersecurity technology, the Comcast network is built to keep families and businesses connected and their data safe. Learn more about how Comcast is investing in a more connected America at ComcastCorporation.com/investment.